Adaora was only 10 years old when she first showed her remarkable talent for healing. In a small village surrounded by thick forests, herbs were the lifeblood of medicine, and healers were revered. While other children played by the riverbanks, Adaora would follow her grandmother, a renowned healer, into the woods to gather plants. One fateful day, when her father fell gravely ill from a fever no one could cure, Adaora stepped forward with a concoction she had seen her grandmother prepare. The fever broke that very night, and word of her gift spread like wildfire. The villagers whispered in awe of the girl who could save lives. Over time, Adaora's abilities grew, and her confidence blossomed. Even the elders began to recognize her unique intuition with plants and remedies. Her grandmother would remind her, "Adaora, talent is a seed, but wisdom is the soil. Do not forget where you came from." But Adaora, basking in the attention, hardly heeded those words. At 13, Adaora faced her first test as a healer. A villager named Chika returned from the fields with a snake bite. The usual remedies failed, and panic set in. The elder healers prepared a poultice, but Adaora, confident in her growing skill, insisted on trying her own formula. Her mixture of crushed leaves and a rare bark worked wonders. By morning, Chika was on his feet, singing Adaora's praises. The elders, though impressed, began to notice her growing pride. She rarely consulted them now and dismissed their methods as outdated. Her grandmother cautioned her again, saying, "The forest holds secrets even the wisest do not know. Be humble, my child." Yet, Adaora only saw her success as validation that she needed no guidance. By the time she turned 16, Adaora had become the village's most sought-after healer. People traveled from neighboring towns to seek her help. Her treatments worked where others had failed, and she reveled in their admiration. She began to wear colorful beads and robes that symbolized her elevated status, often receiving gifts from grateful families. However, Adaora's growing arrogance began to alienate her from her peers. Younger healers sought her advice, only to be met with dismissive comments. When elder healers shared their knowledge, she often ignored them, thinking their methods were old-fashioned. Her grandmother, now frail, watched silently, sensing that Adaora's pride would one day lead to her fall. One afternoon, during a village gathering, an elder healer named Nkem demonstrated an ancient remedy for a common illness. Nkem explained that the method had been passed down for generations, using simple herbs that everyone could find. Adaora, seated among the crowd, laughed softly and whispered to a nearby villager, "Why use such primitive methods when there are better ones?" Her words reached Nkem, who paused mid-explanation. "Adaora," she said gently, "the forest teaches us patience and humility. Even the smallest leaf has value." Adaora shrugged, confident in her superiority. "Perhaps, but I have no time for outdated remedies," she replied. The elders exchanged worried glances, sensing that her pride had blinded her to the wisdom they cherished. One morning, a farmer named Chidi rushed to Adaora's hut, carrying his young daughter, Nena, who was burning with fever. Her skin was pale, and her breathing was labored. Adaora immediately sprang into action, confident in her ability to cure the girl. She prepared her usual remedies, applying them with care. But the fever didn't break. Hours turned into days, and Adaora tried every combination of herbs she knew. Nena's condition only worsened. Desperation crept into Adaora's heart, but she refused to ask for help. "I am the best healer in this village," she muttered to herself. "If I can't cure her, no one can." Chidi, seeing no improvement in his daughter, grew anxious. "Adaora," he pleaded, "please, consult the elders. Perhaps they know something you don't." Adaora bristled at the suggestion. "I have cured worse cases than this. Trust me, I will find the solution." But as the days wore on, her confidence began to waver. She stayed up late into the night, poring over her grandmother's old notes and trying remedies she had dismissed in the past. Nothing worked. Nena's fever raged on, and whispers of Adora's failure began to spread through the village. Chidi, unwilling to watch his daughter suffer any longer, approached Nkem, the elder healer Adora had once mocked. Nkem listened carefully and then prepared a simple remedy using ingredients Adora had scoffed at before. She handed the mixture to Chidi, saying, "Take this to Adora and tell her to administer it. She must see for herself the power of tradition." Chidi hesitated but eventually approached Adora, who reluctantly accepted the remedy. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, but with no other options, she followed Nkem's instructions. To her astonishment, Nena's fever broke within hours, and her breathing steadied. Adora watched as Nena began to recover, her strength returning day by day. She couldn't deny the effectiveness of Nkem's remedy. For the first time in years, she felt unsure of herself. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, "The forest holds secrets even the wisest do not know." Humbled, Adora sought out Nkem to thank her. "I was wrong to dismiss your wisdom," she admitted, her voice trembling. Nkem smiled kindly. "Pride blinds even the brightest among us. But humility opens the door to greater knowledge. Remember this, Adora." The day after Nena's recovery, Adora walked to Nkem's hut, her pride shattered but her resolve renewed. She found the elder mixing herbs by the fire. Adora hesitated before speaking. "Nkem," she began, her voice soft, "thank you for saving Nena. I see now that I've been arrogant. I dismissed your wisdom and the traditions you've preserved. Can you teach me?" Nkem smiled but looked thoughtful. "Healing is not just about knowing herbs, Adora. It's about knowing people, humility, and the power of what came before us. If you are truly ready to learn, you must unlearn some of what you think you know." Adora nodded, determined to begin anew. Nkem took Adora into the forest the next day, just as her grandmother once had. They walked silently, collecting herbs and roots. Adora, used to rushing her walk, found herself frustrated by Nkem's slow pace. "Why do we need this leaf when I already have better remedies for the same ailment?" she asked. Nkem stopped and looked at her. "Do you think you know all the ailments this leaf can cure?" she asked. "Sometimes, the forest will teach you things you didn't ask to learn." Adora felt a sting of shame but said nothing. She realized that her knowledge, vast as it was, still had gaps she hadn't considered. As the days passed, Nkem began teaching Adora about the healer's code, a set of unwritten rules that guided their practice. "A healer must listen more than they speak," she said one evening as they sat by the fire. "The plants will tell you what they can do, and the patient's body will tell you what it needs." Adora listened intently, taking notes. She had always been confident in her diagnosis, but now she realized how little attention she paid to the subtleties of her patients' conditions. She resolved to approach her work with greater care and humility moving forward. News of Nena's recovery spread quickly, and soon a neighboring village sent a messenger to fetch Adora and Nkem. A young boy had fallen ill with strange symptoms, swelling limbs, difficulty breathing, and sudden blackouts. The villagers believed it was a curse. Adora and Nkem worked together, examining the boy and questioning his family. Adora initially suggested a complex remedy she had used before, but Nkem stopped her. "Observe first," she said. They discovered the boy had been bitten by an unusual insect. Using a combination of Adora's advanced remedies and Nkem's traditional poultice, they cured the boy within days. Adora's newfound humility wasn't welcomed by everyone. Younger healers who once idolized her began to mock her for consulting with the elders. "So the great Adora now needs help," one of them sneered. Adora felt anger rise in her chest but reminded herself of Nkem's words, "A healer must listen more than they speak." She ignored the taunts and focused on her work, understanding that her actions would speak louder than any words. Over time, the critics quieted as her patients continued to recover and her reputation for wisdom grew. Nkem introduced Adaora to another elder healer, Mama Ife, who specialized in spiritual healing. Mama Ife taught Adaora the importance of addressing not just the body but also the mind and spirit. Adaora was skeptical at first but agreed to observe. Mama Ife demonstrated how calming the mind could ease physical pain, using chants and soothing herbs to treat an elderly man with chronic headaches. Adaora, amazed at the results, realized how much she still had to learn. She began incorporating these practices into her own healing. One evening, a woman arrived with her baby, who had been crying for 3 days straight. Adaora examined the child but couldn't find anything physically wrong. Frustrated, she wanted to give up, but Nkem reminded her, sometimes, the answer takes time to reveal itself. Over the next day, Adaora stayed with the baby, observing closely. She finally noticed that the baby cried more after feeding and realized the mother's milk wasn't agreeing with him. She prescribed a special tea for the mother, and the baby stopped crying by the next morning. Adaora learned that patience was as important as skill in healing. Adaora decided to visit her grandmother, who had grown frail and bedridden. She knelt by her bedside and apologized for ignoring her wisdom in the past. Her grandmother smiled weakly. "You were always gifted, my child, but the heart is the true source of healing. Never lose it." Her grandmother's words stayed with her, reminding her to approach every patient with empathy and respect. Adaora realized that healing was not just about curing but also about comforting and connecting with others on a deeper level. As Adaora continued her journey, she became a new person, a healer no longer driven by pride, but by a profound respect for tradition, wisdom, and the heart of those she served. Her skills had transformed, but so had her spirit. She walked alongside Nkem, Mama Ife, and the other elder healers, valuing each lesson as they shared the knowledge passed down through generations. One evening, as they gathered under the moonlight, Adaora expressed her gratitude. "Thank you for showing me what true healing is," she said, her eyes reflecting her humility and dedication. Nkem nodded. "We are all healers in some way, Adaora, whether with herbs, words, or compassion. But healing is a gift that requires humility as much as skill. Only with a humble heart can you truly see and connect with the people you help." Adaora's reputation spread beyond her village, and soon she became known as the healer who listened, who understood the importance of tradition, and who approached every person with empathy and grace. She continued learning, never losing sight of her grandmother's advice: talent is a seed, but wisdom is the soil. The story of Adaora serves as a powerful reminder that true greatness is rooted in humility and respect for wisdom that has come before us. For both young and adults, it teaches that talent and knowledge, while valuable, can only reach their full potential when paired with a humble heart and open mind. In our everyday lives, it's easy to become proud of our skills, achievements, or intelligence, especially when they bring success or admiration. Like Adaora, we might think that we know everything we need and overlook the guidance and wisdom of others. However, as the story shows, our pride can blind us to deeper knowledge and insights that can only be learned through humility and listening to others. For young people, Adaora's journey emphasizes the importance of respecting elders, traditions, and the knowledge that comes from experience. It teaches that confidence should not turn into arrogance and that we grow stronger when we are willing to learn from those who have walked the path before us. For adults, this story highlights the importance of staying grounded, even when we reach positions of influence or expertise. It reminds us that no matter how much we think we know, life has a way of humbling us and showing us new lessons. Being open to the wisdom of others, regardless of our own accomplishments, enriches our understanding and deepens our connections with those around us. In a broader sense, the moral compass of the story encourages us to approach our personal and professional lives with a spirit of empathy, humility, and a willingness to learn from every experience and every person we meet. It shows that true success is not only in what we achieve but in how we serve and uplift others along the way.